partner in school design at Thrive, former elementary school principal, huge fan of the Dodgers, same as Superintendent Martinez. Steve Martinez, also a huge fan of the Dodgers. They share that and many other work-related connections. Steve's been the superintendent at Kernville since 2019, former teacher, vice principal, principal. We've also got Marie Sampson here with us today, former teacher, also a former principal, and former Kern County Teacher of the Year, which is phenomenal. Kern County, from my understanding, I think, is it 41 districts in the county? So, no, more than that. Even
46.
46. All right. Even more, Marie. Congrats on that honor. Now, the assistant superintendent working closely with Steve. We've got an alumnus of Kernville's very own Wallace Elementary. Now its principal, and actually on site, not in glorious Anaheim at a conference, joining us here, actually dealing with the first bell of the day and students arriving. Mrs. Lisa Burgess, principal. Delighted to have you. Thank you for taking time. And also another awesome principal in the fold from Kernville Elementary in Anaheim, but still here with us. Thank you, Marcy Refuerzo, for being here with over 20 years of experience teaching in the 3 through 7 grades and now as principal. Thrilled to have you all here to represent the great work you're doing, and I'll turn it over. And the last thing I'll say is I'll give you a 5-minute reminder. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Liam. You did a great job introducing all of us, and we're so glad that there's so many folks here in the room today. Before we kick off, just a little bit of background about why you're here, hopefully, and some of the work that we've been doing and getting started with. Kernville is one of 13 schools in 7 systems across California that our organization Thrive has had the honor of working with. We have been supporting schools with team-based models in partnership with ASU's Next Education Workforce across California in urban, suburban, rural districts with all different sizes, but today you're going to get to hear from the amazing folks in Kernville. Everyone who has approached this work and who has come to teaming is all trying to solve a different problem or trying to focus in a different area. And hopefully you'll get to hear some of the ways that they've really focused their efforts in designing team-based models in their system and how that connects directly to some of the challenges that they were going to solve. So if you're here, hopefully it's because you're wanting to challenge our current approach to the role of the educator, and that you want to see an example of designing a teacher leadership pathway. One of the most exciting things that we're excited to share from Kernville is how they've really designed a role that allows teachers to step into a leadership position that isn't just a straight pathway to administration, but something that allows them to continue to remain in the classroom doing the work that they love, and to learn a little bit about how team-based models can leverage teacher support while working towards alignment across the system. So I know that Liam already introduced our amazing team, but we have 4 of the folks from Kernville Union School District here, and I'm going to ask some questions and let them take it away. And so for some of you that maybe aren't in California or that are and aren't familiar with Kernville, my first question to the team as they're introducing themselves and sharing about their work is, tell us a little bit about Kernville.
Thank you, Courtney. So Kernville, we are a small rural district. We are in Kern County, about 48 miles east of Bakersfield in Kern County. We have 3 schools, 2 elementary, one of those being very small, and 1 middle school. We have 54 teachers and almost 800 students. We also have a state preschool that we operate. We serve kids in grades K through 8, along with our preschool, and we have a pretty high SED population of students.
Steve. So I know that a lot of times people look at team-based models and they think, oh, are they always on a large scale? Are they always in huge schools, huge districts? But I'm here in Kernville, you can see they've got some smaller schools that they're working with too. And so tell us, what was the initial problem or challenge that you were trying to solve for?
So this idea came about after I would say multiple years of conversations and feedback from our teachers, from our union leadership. And the problem really was how to provide more timely support to our um, teachers, especially our new teachers. Um, we've had we have a teacher shortage here in California, and because we're rural, sometimes it's hard to attract good teachers. So our retention, as you can see, is kind of fluctuated. This year we hit that 90% mark for teacher retention, and we anticipate it'll tick up also next year. And we think it's because of the work we're doing with teacher leadership and teaming.
Uh, and to add a little bit of some of the slides that you have showing those goals and retention percentages.
So
Are there.
yeah, this slide's good. So we used to have mentors in our district, and mentors were full-time classroom teachers. They would mentor teachers through the completion of their clear credential um, on the side, whenever they had a chance during, before school, after school, weekends, during their preps, whenever they could get a minute. But we were finding that it wasn't that effective because it wasn't providing timely and immediate support. Some of our teachers, they needed on the spot help sometimes if it was classroom management or delivering a lesson. So we switched from adjunct mentors to achievement leaders. So we created these full-time positions, 100% out of the classroom, with them pushing into the classroom to provide support through intervention, co-teaching. They're able to model for our teachers, not just our new ones, but we've heard a lot of positive things from our veteran and most experienced teachers, but allowing them to give that immediate feedback, saying, hey, you know what? Let me model this lesson for you, or have you thought about this? So it's very timely, and we group them in grade spans, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. But one achievement leader will have a grade span of 2 or 3 grades in our schools, and we have achievement leaders. We have 2 at our middle school, 3 at our larger elementary school, and 1 at our smaller elementary school. And we also invested in California. We have the local control accountability plan, the LCAP, and we use local funding, LCFF funding. So part of that process is to get stakeholder feedback and engagement, and we wrote it into our plan. So it's a pretty heavy investment for us. So for all of our achievement leaders, the 6 of them, when the monetary investment is several $100,000. So you're probably looking at about $140,000 each. And we're also pulling experienced teachers out of the classroom in order to provide this support. So that was a little bit of an obstacle and something that we had to overcome that we'll talk about a little bit later. But and then also our site principals use some of their Title I funds to pay for the other portion of our each achievement leader.
And if you want to talk on this slide a little about just the quality of the teacher support that they felt they've received as a result of it.
So we just did a survey about 6 weeks ago, a couple months ago, just kind of taking the temperature of how our teachers feel with this new support with an achievement leader. And overall in the district, 55% of our teachers feel that they're receiving more support than they were last year. And it was as high as 67% in one of our schools. So we're only several months in, but we're starting to see the impact. And when you're looking at, teacher confidence and teacher efficacy, this is, one of those things that speaks to teacher efficacy and really helping them do their job well. And one of the other things that we wanted to do with the achievement leaders and achievement teams is this is a systems approach. We didn't want to go back to let's have smaller class sizes, because in reality, in order to afford this and in order to provide the support, our class sizes had to go up a little bit. They're still within contract, but that was also something that we had to message out, because small class sizes is very important to our teachers.
Yeah. And so when we think about the different ways that you could have approached some of this work, right, to solve for, teacher retention, increase support, feeling more aligned, there are different ways that you could have approached this problem, different solutions, but talk a little bit about how did you determine, what pathway you're going to explore, how you got to designing team-based models with a teacher leadership position. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
So we were on a statewide small school district association superintendent's roundtable meeting. And Thrive was there, and Nicole was speaking and talking about this opportunity that they had, and it really piqued my interest. And we kind of looked into that and applied for the grant, and we received it. And we've been working with Thrive and Courtney, and they've been tremendous support with moving our achievement leaders and helping us set benchmarks and goals for what we're trying to achieve. So then we went out to Arizona, and Marie and we're going to talk about this. We had the opportunity to visit a couple of their school sites, Stevenson, and Kyrene, and kind of hear from their staff and hear from ASU. And this visit really propelled us and helped us gain a clearer picture of what we could do, what was possible, and what we needed to do next.
I think too, when we pulled into Stevenson Elementary and we looked around at the community and we went, this looks like our community. These are kids who have some of the same challenges that some of our families face. And we walked into that school and met these kids who, fifth graders, were taking us on this tour of their school, telling us about how their whole education is different now that they're part of a teaming model. I remember leaving that day going, yep, our kids need this. And so that made it really exciting to look at how can we engage our kids in school the way that these students are engaged in school.
And as you saw models, you decided that this was one of the things that you wanted to do. What was the process then to introduce this idea of team-based models back into your district? How were you engaging stakeholders in some of those initial conversations around this idea?
If we could go to the next slide, please. So, and Marie's going to help answer that question.
So it really started with individual conversations. We just started talking to people. We knew who our key staff members were who were going to start getting this message out. We also really thinking about who I'm going to talk to when I think about who have I already had conversations with about the challenges around supporting new teachers, the people who are supporting those new teachers, and also those areas where we saw coaching happening within our district and some of the success with it, and being strategic about having conversations with those people about how we could either address their concerns or what we've seen them doing and how we could grow this little pocket of success across our district. So we were very strategic in that area. And then the next step came, well, now it's time to write a job description and collaborate with our bargaining unit. Right now we have to collaborate with our teachers and figure out what this really looks like. And so we took some samples from ASU and took some of the job descriptions we already had, and we worked with our union to negotiate a new job description. Now, we were not required to negotiate the job description because it was new. We were only required to negotiate the stipend salary amount. But in building trust over the years with our union and in continuing to make this successful, we really thought it was important to have those conversations and negotiate the job description with the union and get their feedback. And we met 3 or 4 times over the span of a couple of months and really took the time to listen, to understand their concerns, and understand and answer a lot of questions about what this might look like. Because at this point, Dr. Martinez and I had been to ASU, we had done the trainings, and so we're trying to convey to them what this could look like, but nobody else had really engaged in the process a lot yet, right? They hadn't done any of the beginning work at the school sites. One thing that came up a lot during that process was, how are we going to support special ed staff? Because we were not proposing to have a separate special education achievement leader. And we still are having conversations around that. But one thing that we felt was really important is we are continuing to improve our inclusion of students with disabilities. And if we create a separate achievement leader for just students with disabilities and teach special ed teachers, then it goes back to that idea of those are their kids, they're going to figure out how to support them. And I'm the achievement leader and I work with the general ed teachers. So we continue to have a teacher lead for special education. We have a coordinator for special education, and they help support the achievement leaders. But within that system at the grade span, the special ed teachers are part of that team, and they work with that achievement leader to work with all students. And we've really seen inclusion happen. Teachers are starting to talk about co-teaching on their own, asking for more support with that because it's naturally happening because everybody's working together to support all kids at that grade level. Another interesting thing that came up is we offered a stipend amount and the teachers came back and said, that's probably too much. So they actually negotiated $3,000 less than we initially offered, which we thought was a really interesting thing. But I think that goes back to the trust and relationships that we have worked really hard to build with our union, and the fact that they saw this work as important and they wanted to make sure it could continue in the future, and also that they didn't want they wanted to continue to build relationships with the teams they would be working with the teachers, and didn't want there to be animosity there. The stipend was too high.
And in the chat, for those that are looking, there is a link to the MOU that they described, and they'll be dropping a link to the job description that they worked on together. And so as you were, going through this process, like you said, that is one amazing. You never hear people say less money, but that there is that trust and that, ability that you had with the relationships that you have. But were there any challenges that you faced as you were trying to implement this achievement leader role beyond that? And, how did you overcome those, or how did you, continue to push forward from that?
Yeah, so I think one of the big challenges was staff was really nervous about pulling seasoned teachers out of the classroom. Now, some of the teachers who moved into the achievement leader positions were already providing intervention services, but we're really overhauling how we provide support to our students who are struggling by looking at our intervention services different as well. And so trying to pull kids out of the class less and provide more support so that teachers know how to support those struggling students within the classroom. And so there was a lot of nervousness about, what does this look like, right? Education looks one way. We've done it this way for a lot of years. I've been in the district for all of these years. It's always looked this way. Now you're going to do something different. And just the other day, we had a superintendent's advisory council meeting where our teachers and parents and everybody can come and give feedback. And one of our teachers, who's been at the district for over 30 years, said, I love having an achievement leader. It's reinvigorated my teaching. I love having that thought partner. And I think she didn't see initially how it could apply to her, because we focus so much on discussing new teachers and how it would support our new teachers, but it's also supporting all teachers. And so that's really exciting. Another challenge is equity for the number or amount of time each school site has an achievement leader, and not making those decisions just based on student numbers, but actually on the need of the school site. So that was something that we really had to message out and explain, that this one school site has all season teachers except for one. They don't need as much achievement leader time as another school site that has 20% of their staff are new this year. And so really working through some of that and helping everybody understand that it's not going to be equal. It's not going to be a percentage based on number of students, but we're actually looking at the needs of the staff and the students, and then making decisions about how much staffing we would place at a school site based on that. But I think that as people have seen that there's ongoing support, there's immediate support, communication is so much easier between the principal and the teachers because they have these ongoing meetings with their achievement leaders, and they're doing a lot of the messaging out and helping with that. All teachers have a thought partner. They have a group to work with, and we're starting to see more conversations around increasing that rigor in instruction, how to support all students within the classroom. So we're seeing those changes slowly start to happen. And I think that over the next year to 2 years, we're really going to see the outcomes for students change. And this year we've had already 3 of our 7 staff members who are on emergency permits apply for their credentials. So we're seeing people move through that process a little bit faster because they have that more immediate support and somebody telling them, you can do this, let's help you get through this, because they're getting that support throughout the workday as well, not just when they can make time. It's not something additional on top of their workday. So I think that's really helping with that. And then also, as I talked about earlier, that inclusion of students with disabilities is not just getting kids into the classroom, but we're really working towards increasing the level of instruction they're getting and helping all teachers understand best practices for working with those students in the general ed classroom.
Thanks for sharing all of that, because I think you both named some of the challenges that exist, but also, how the achievement leaders are really working in their roles on a day-to-day to solve those challenges, to be there directly supporting teachers, directly supporting students, and really being in the work with them. And I know that, we have 2 of our principals on the call as well, and, wanting to hear just what are some specific examples, or what are some ways that the achievement leaders have supported teachers or teams maybe in challenging situations that stand out as a part of this work?
Marcy, do you want to go first?
Sure. Okay, well, I am at the smaller elementary, Kernville Elementary, and we have about 110 students. So things that are going well, like my achievement, I have 4 teachers and they each have a combo. But my achievement leader is able to push in and work with small groups within each classroom and just support like the veteran teachers, but also I do have a new teacher. So working through that, providing intervention, and also being my teacher in charge because I'm not always on campus. So really opening those lines of communication between myself and the teachers.
And then at my school site, I actually had some resistors that might surprise some of you, and I might be a resistor myself. So I'm going to probably want to prove you wrong that it doesn't work, but I'll try it along the way. And what we're seeing is super exciting as far as our teachers are trying new things. Our achievement leaders are able to get into the classroom and work alongside them. They are pulling small groups, which a lot of our teachers, if I look back at a snapshot of the last 10 years, a lot of our teachers came in at a time where veteran teachers retired. There was no real stability amongst grade levels. And so there wasn't those veteran teachers to kind of coach our new teachers along. So now our veteran teachers might have had 10 years in our district, but they really didn't have a coach when they first came in, or anybody to really mentor or show them how to do these best practices or evidence-based strategies that we know are so impactful. And so now I have these achievement leaders going into the classrooms and working with our teachers who not against them whatsoever, but they never learned. And so then they've learned how to present well because now they're veteran teachers. And so there's a lot of walls and a lot of barriers that are starting to come down. And we're finally able to start having honest conversations as far as what is that rigor supposed to look like? How do we really get in, whether the students a special a student with a special education plan or not, how do we get in and really help that student and get them what they need? And so we're having the most exciting conversations. We're having hard conversations. We're leaving passionate and ready to like come back and have more discourse with each other. And everybody is growing. It is the most exciting thing to see. I am sitting in IEPs right now, and my general education teachers, along with my special education teachers, are synergizing in the IEP meeting as far as how we're going to help this student become even better. And parents see it, the staff sees it. I have so many different examples. This was just yesterday. It's tons of post-it notes of student engagement that we're seeing. So the achievement leaders are just really able to get in there and support our teachers on all sorts of challenges and barriers that they experience day to day, and then help them problem solve through it. So
I love that. And having gotten to be on site, having worked with the folks that are in this picture, it is really beautiful. I'm sure some of you that are listening in can relate to that struggle of coming up against, institutional knowledge of we have always done things a certain way, or this is just how it is. But then having, empowered teachers, peers that are helping to really shift the tides and really move towards a more inclusive education for all the students is something that I hear beautifully being said.
And
You
if
know,
I chime
go
in
ahead.
really quick, Lisa shared with me a while back, our kids, and she talked a little bit about it, our kids are more engaged. Our kids have a lot of high needs, and behavior support is one of them. And one of our areas of concern was elopement, and that is way down because the kids are engaged, the teachers are getting the support, the kids are getting the support, and so that's more learning time in the classroom.
Mhm.
And, with what you've shared, they're already making an impact. And I think we didn't even name this, that this had started this year. And so this role is new, having just started in September. So it's February now, just half a year under their belt. But what happens next? Like, what are the next steps for, enhancing the effectiveness of achievement leaders, and really, where do you go from here?
Well, I know one of the things we struggled with, so was scheduling, so just perfecting our schedule throughout the year and what's the best for our teachers and our students. And also, I'm asking this person to be an achievement leader, a mentor, a coach, and she's like, well, like, how do I coach? So getting her through the process of learning how to coach, so coaching them how to coach, that's kind of our next steps and working through that journey. So I'm excited.
I have to piggyback off of that and say, I was able to do some of the training this summer with our team through ASU, and the framework that they have in place really pulls in a lot of best practices for coaching for the teams model. And really, like, I saw the depth that they provided in the framework. And even one of my achievement leaders keeps going back to refer to the framework that was provided, because this is a continuous improvement process, and we're just scratching the surface, ready to dig in, continuing that coaching, learning the art, learning the questioning, learning to have harder conversations or stay curious longer before just coming to different conclusions about different situations. Um, I'm growing in this process and really sharing the leadership amongst the achievement leaders, which I think is really one of the most powerful practices, and seeing how I think our school was ready for this in so many ways. And then really working with, thankfully, Courtney and Thrive, and looking at what is our tier one promise to all students and making that equitable regardless of where the student is starting from. And I don't know if there's any of you out there that are just checking this out for the first time, but I cannot begin to even express how excited I am about this teaming model, what we've learned from ASU. It just was a framework that we were able to customize and make fit our needs, and the sky's the limit for us.
Love that. We have one more question, but if folks in the audience have questions, you can start to think about them, pop them into the chat. But the final question I have to the team is, how do you then see this role influencing the broader goals of the district? You are, a small district, but your schools are very unique in working. As we've seen, as we've come together and brought everyone together, perspectives from each school are really different. So how do you see this really working in terms of how you see the district as a whole? And any of you all can answer in that.
So,
I see us. Oh, go ahead.
oh, go ahead. I was just gonna say, so our district goal, we don't have a mission and vision. We have a playbook, and it's based off of the work of Patrick Lencioni, but it comes down to student achievement, and student achievement can mean a lot of different things. It's not just academic, but it's also social emotional learning, and we really focus on progress. We know there are goals to reach, and there's the local and the smaller data pieces and the data that our state wants us to achieve, but we're really focused on stepping towards making progress and students achieving and just growing as students, as people.
And I think to piggyback off of Steve, it's just, I think one of the unique things about our district is we're a really small community. So we eat, play, and work together. And so our relationships in the school like bleed into our community time, our grocery shopping time, and along with student achievement, it's building that organizational trust, because we still hear stories about 1920 when somebody's great grandma went here and they were bullied or had a bad situation that we're still competing with. And so I think that one of our broader goals in this is really to change that perspective, or change that the way that they look at us and how we function in this community, because we want organizational health, we want student achievement, and we want a thriving community outside of these walls. And we know it starts with our students.
Marcy, anything to add, or Marie?
I think they covered it really well. I wouldn't have anything more to add. Thank you guys.
Yeah.
And just to like reiterate what this team has said, they've done a lot of this work, but it's moved from last year being introduced to teaming models, from seeing that and from envisioning this role that an achievement leader, the teacher leadership pathway could have within their district, to building out that MOU job description, and launching in this school year, and just seeing these teachers come together in their new roles. The support has been just a really an honor to get to see and see alongside them. Lisa, do you have something to add to that?
I think that the only other thing I would add is just that when we went to ASU, they talked a lot about choosing your right team. And I keep going back to that little nugget, because it is so important. And having the right team and the people alongside you that are committed to this work, I think has made it move that fast, because working in education, I've never seen anything move this fast ever. And so there's days that I wake up and I pinch myself, because I'm like, I have read about it, but I've never experienced it. And now that I'm experiencing it, I want more of it. And it's just so refreshing and encouraging.
And also just a note on the HR aspect with having the right team that Lisa is talking about, is we negotiated to make sure that the district, the administrative team, is able to choose our achievement leaders. It's nothing that comes into a transfer meeting or anything like that. We wanted to make sure that we were able to control and pick the right achievement leaders for that team.
So you have a great question in the chat. in your opinion, was getting buy-in for an achievement leader easier because of being in a small district? Or how might this transfer to a larger district?
I think it's just relationships. So having good relationships with your leaders, your teacher leaders. We have a great relationship with our leader, our union leadership that, took years to build. So I think whether you're small or large, just having those relationships, starting to then you get into a little bit of the local politics, starting to plant those seeds, starting to have conversations so that they piques their interest and with those key people and those teacher leaders, and then they kind of do the work for you and spread it and share it with their colleagues, and they kind of like the idea, so they do a lot of the work for you. Is there anything else, Marie?
Yeah, I think in some ways it's harder to make change in a small district. I want to preface my comment with I've always worked at Kernville and I've been there since I was 5. So maybe I have a skewed view, but in talking to other colleagues and looking at it, because we're so small that if 1 or 2 key people are not on board, we're not making a change. We're not doing something because we're so small that 1 or 2 people can really impact it. And I've seen us try to make change over the years, and it wasn't as strategic. And I think one of the key things that made it happen is we did not come in and say, we're doing this and here you go, this is how we're going to move forward. It was that collaboration piece that really helped us make the change. And I think that's key no matter the size of the district.
Yeah, and
I
one
think
thing.
the other
So go ahead, Lisa.
The other thing was that this was the first time we also held the line as administrators, as far as we always want buy-in, but before I think we also could cave to the resistors. And this time it's like, let us support you through this. And we actually had the team to support our teachers through it. Before we didn't have that piece. And I think that's why we would kind of cave to the different things, is that we couldn't give them the support in it, the process.
And I also think that our district was just in the right spot. Like our teachers, I felt like I came into the district as a teacher and then moved into the admin position, but I feel like our teachers were recognizing something needed to change for our students. And they were willing to make that change. And we had strong leadership that believed in it and was consistent. And I think just all of those things melding together really helped the process.
Yeah, and one thing I would just add to this whole conversation, getting to work with schools across California in different settings, is that, we also have a partner that we work with, the San Ramon Valley Unified School District. They have 36 schools. And so they have also taken a really similar approach to our folks in Kernville with, bringing in stakeholders early, having those conversations. But the way that it looked a little different was that they piloted in 3 schools as opposed to launching in 36 schools in the beginning. And so, being able to be in a larger district meant finding a few pilot schools, principals that were really interested and engaged in the process, but bringing folks along really early in the process to get to spread.
And Courtney, can I add too, we're not fully teaming at all grade spans with all achievement leaders. So we've placed the people, and we have one grade span that is really strong into teaming, and everybody else throughout this year is now moving towards the teaming model and planning for it for next year. So we had to be strategic in not forcing too much either, because we wanted to start small, and people are seeing the success and they're going, I want to do more of the teaming like they're doing in 4th and 5th grade, where they're really sharing students and sharing the workload.
A process, like although many pieces move fast, there's still some pilots and moves along the way. We have like just a few minutes. If anyone else in the room has any other questions, you can pop them into the chat for the group. I also saw that we had some friends from Education First in the room, and wanted to give a shout out to them because they published an article and a blog on their website about the Kernville team and highlighting the work that was done there. So I'll pop a link to that in the chat, that you can read more about their amazing feature around the work that this team has done. Great. Any long-term plan for teacher leaders? Will this be a permanent position is the question we have.
Yes, so the idea is to have that systems approach that will outlast us. So as far as the number of positions, that may ebb and flow depending on our need, but um we went into this with this being something that's long-term, that's here to remain. Our achievement leaders right now, they'll probably be retiring in the next 5 years. So we want them to pass out on what they've learned and their knowledge and experience to the next crop of achievement leaders, and kind of have that system of support that can continue to go, beyond us.
Awesome. Well, we are right on time, even a minute to spare, so you can get that break in before your next session. But we want to thank you for being here and joining us. And thank you to the Kernville team, who has just been such amazing rockstar partners in this work. If there is anything that anyone in this audience needs, always feel free to reach out. We're happy to continue to support. But if not, we hope the rest of today goes super well and that you get to continue learning in some great sessions.
Yeah, just echo that. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day. All the folks from Kernville, really appreciate you and Courtney, as always, for being such a great facilitator and partner in the work. Awesome to have you here, and thank you again.